Brussels tonight plays host once more to Europe's leaders as they attempt once more to solve the debt crisis. Each time the stakes get higher, so will this summit be the one to save the euro? Earlier this week, German Chancellor Angela Merkel and French President Nicolas Sarkozy held their own summit in Paris. In a now familiar pattern, they laid out their proposals to save the euro, and for good measure yesterday they sent a formal letter to European Council President Herman Van Rompuy with a few more proposals thrown in. They include faster progress on a common European corporate tax base, something our government opposes, a financial transaction tax, something the UK bitterly opposes, no burning of bondholders in any future Eurozone bailout, Greece to be a once-off. They want treaty change agreed by all 27 member states, and if that doesn't work, they'll press ahead with just the 17 Eurozone members. There'll be sanctions for countries that break rules on spending and borrowing, and countries must enshrine these so-called golden rules in their constitutions.
I suppose the question does arise, however, on what France and Germany would do if they didn't win acceptance for the actual treaty provisions that they're putting forward. I think it's fairly clear that Germany in particular are indicating that if they don't succeed in securing treaty change in order to get these changes through, that what they might do is look outside the framework of the actual treaties themselves.
If Germany and France insist on forging ahead, Ireland may still have little choice but to hold a referendum. The European Council President Herman Van Rompuy has suggested that beefing up existing provisions could avoid treaty change.
You could argue that in terms of immediate solutions to the crisis that we're looking at, that the need for treaty change is actually questionable. But there is a strong political need for it, if you like, from the Germans, and perhaps that stems from the fact that previous efforts to regulate budgetary behaviour on the part of the member states was less than successful.
If treaty change is agreed, it will crystallise the loss of sovereignty that has already been experienced by Europe's indebted nations, and it will mark a solid step towards more integration.
So we had the euro, and then we realised that, God, we need fiscal union, and now we'll have fiscal union. But then we have to have control of budgets. And now we see even thrown into the packages harmonisation of the corporate tax code. Economically, in fact, I'd argue, treaty change along the lines that Merkel is talking about is good for the proper functioning of the economy of the European Union, of the Eurozone. Politically, I'd vote totally against it, but economically it is the sensible thing to do.
The Taoiseach told us he wanted to be the one to restore Ireland's economic sovereignty, but if he signs up this weekend to Germany's wishes, he'll have to defend a very real loss of that same notion of sovereignty.
I would hope that the Taoiseach would make that absolutely clear in public, that it is unacceptable that two countries try to dictate European policy.
If that is what we have to do to save our currency, to restore our economy, to be able as a sovereign nation to borrow again on the financial markets, and to ensure that no future government can ever again bring us to such a sorry state, then let us not be afraid to put that choice to the Irish people.
Protocols, treaty changes and the tortuously complex legal structure of the European Union are just the kind of things that European summits are made of. But Europe faces a different and more immediate problem. Its highly indebted economies are finding it increasingly expensive to borrow in international markets, and its banks are facing a credit crunch. What Europe needs now is money, lots of money. Enter Mario Draghi, newly installed president of the European Central Bank. Bearing a seasonal gift of a quarter-point cut in interest rates today, he also announced measures to make it easier for banks to borrow cheaply from the ECB. He potentially has lots of money at his disposal, but he too is a stickler for the rules.
Fiscal rules enshrined in primary legislation. These rules would contain limits to structural deficits and to debt.
One suggestion raised in Brussels is that in return for strict adherence to budgetary rules, the ECB could indirectly help fund indebted European states locked out of the markets. The ECB, through a secondary institution like the European Stability Mechanism, the new bailout fund, or indeed the IMF, could lend to troubled Eurozone states.
The European Central Bank might realistically argue that it doesn't have the resources, the skills or the capacities to run rescue packages, to monitor governments, and the IMF, as it were, would be the world source for this. So they then would give the money to the IMF and expect the IMF to basically send it out to countries, but only on very strict conditions, following programs, such as we're seeing with our own package.
The UK has flagged that it has major problems with the proposals from France and Germany. And then there's Ireland's own particular interest. If other Eurozone nations get help with their sovereign debt, the government hopes we might secure a better deal on the loans provided to bail out Anglo-Irish Bank, which it's estimated could end up costing an incredible €47.8 billion.
Whether it's through the ECB, and therefore, as it were, the government can get money back from the banks because their own sort of solvency situation is improved, whether it's through the Irish Central Bank writing off the money that we've bought, that basically had to be put into Anglo-Irish Bank, or whether it's through some renegotiation of the EFSF money. So I would see that, yes, I don't envisage that when all this settles down, we will be paying back every penny that we have.
Germany and France want treaty changes to be agreed by March. Ireland wants a better bailout deal. Italy needs money. The ECB wants everyone to stick to the rules. It may take a miracle to solve this European debt crisis, but it may be the miracle of next Christmas, not this one.